We know more about relationships than ever before. We talk about love all the time. We see couples everywhere online. And yet more people than ever before don't even know what a good relationship is supposed to feel like. I mean, as somebody who spent my entire adult life single, this paradox hits especially hard, and it's very likely something that you can relate to as well. Because according to Pew Research, about 63% of men under 30 are currently single, nearly half of dating app users say dating makes them feel frustrated, and the average age of marriage is now around 30, one of the highest ever recorded. So we have more options, more knowledge, and more freedom, and yet relationships seem harder than ever to understand. That naturally leads us to the question, what is love? Why are we so bad at practicing it? And why does it feel like some everlasting impossible quest? This video will not teach you how to find love, but what it will do is use biology, philosophy, and psychology to offer you a sophisticated and practical idea of what love even looks like, while also explaining why your current environment and habits are likely making things much harder for you than they need to be. So stay tuned, we got a lot of stuff to cover. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist, explains that love is actually made up of 3 different systems in the brain. And the reason these systems exist is basically to help humans mate, reproduce, and stay together long enough so that they can raise children, so that we can evolve as a species. There's lust, which is the physical drive. There's attraction, which is the intense, exciting phase we usually call being in love. This is also the phase that gets overrepresented in movies, but also on social media, a topic that we're going to discuss in a couple of minutes. And last but not least, there's attachment, the part that makes long-term relationships possible. These 3 systems can overlap and influence each other, so to keep things simple, people just describe them as stages, and for this video, that's what we're going to be doing as well. As already mentioned, the first stage is lust. Its purpose essentially is to encourage us to seek a range of potential partners for mating. It's primarily driven by sex hormones such as testosterone, estrogen, and when it comes to the characteristics, I think it's obvious: sexual desire, seeking gratification, and so on. The second stage, as we already discussed, is attraction. This one allows us to focus all our mating energy on one specific person at a time. You might ask why? Well, because of a rise in the neuromodulators of dopamine and noradrenaline, and a drop of the neuromodulator serotonin. This ends up leading to a state of exhilaration, of high energy, of obsessive and intrusive thoughts, as well as anxiety. So a lot of emotional volatility, ups and downs, ups and downs. From a neurochemical perspective, this stage is also very similar to limerence. What's also very interesting about this stage is that, again, from a neurochemical perspective, it resembles addiction, meaning our brains are not built to handle it on a long-term basis. Meaning that if we go through this stage for a period longer than a couple months or years, it's likely that we will burn out. Which is why we have the third stage, also known as the stage of attachment. Its purpose is to keep humans together in order to raise children. So what is it driven by? Chemicals like oxytocin and vasopressin. Vasopressin is especially more prevalent in males. And what do these chemicals do? Well, they promote feelings of safety, security, trust, belonging, and so on. Feelings that are necessary when it comes to sustaining a long-term relationship. These emotional highs and lows, you don't want them in this kind of bond. So in this stage, there's less dopamine release, less excitement, less being blinded by love, but therefore more predictability, more commitment, and overall more stability. Now, so that you have a better understanding of when and how these stages occur, I think it's important to mention 2 things. The first one being that these stages do not have to happen in a chronological order. The second one being that just because one stage happened, it doesn't mean that it can never happen again, and that sometimes stages can happen at the same time. And that's about all that we need to know when it comes to understanding this 3 stage or 3 system model from Helen Fisher. Now let's look at the interesting part of the video, the part in which we will try to figure out why so many of us have a distorted perception of what a good relationship feels or looks like. We have 3 issues here. The first one is that the second stage, so the stage of attraction, is overrepresented. It's most shown in movies and on social media because of its emotional intensity. It keeps viewers hooked. And now think about it. Where does the majority of Gen Z get their concepts of love from? From studying biology? Or from viewing social media couple accounts and romantic movies, such as Titanic? What this logically results in is the majority of Gen Z thinking that stage 2 is the most dominant and most salient stage of a relationship. And that can be especially damaging for individuals who at the same time want a long-term relationship. The second issue. As a result of high social media consumption, we're more than ever before addicted to high-amplitude dopamine spikes, so to constant novelty and excitement. I made a whole video on this, which goes into detail. You can watch it over here. This issue has a lot of ramifications. I wrote them down here so that I don't fuck this part up. The first one being, it causes us to consume more social media and therefore further distort our perception of what a good relationship even is. The second one is that it makes it harder for us to accept a relationship that becomes less intense or less rewarding. Just think about it. We're addicted to high amplitude dopamine spikes, therefore it is much harder for us to enjoy and find meaning in meaningful things. And just think about how that affects a calm, perhaps somewhat boring, but stable, sustainable relationship. You see the problem here? And the third ramification is that it stirs us into viewing love as a tool for personal gratification rather than an act of compassion. This leads me to the third issue, which is a combination out of issues 1 and 2. If the majority of people in my generation think that love is solely stage 2, because of movies and social media, and at the same time are addicted to neurochemical experiences like ones that are felt in stage 2, because of their addiction to high amplitude dopamine spikes, they are much more likely to become promiscuous and defend it. And it's not because they want to become sluts or be disloyal, I'm referring to men and women here, but it's because their idea of what love is, which is fundamentally flawed by their limited understanding of biology, needs constant novelty and excitement to make sense. And this is totally excluding the fact that almost half of Gen Z, according to US data, was raised in family dynamics where parents were either divorced or in unsatisfying marriages, which of course further limits one's understanding of what love even is. I think that now we can all agree on the two following points. The first one being that this is a very complex topic and that there are a lot of issues involved. The second point being that pointing these issues out is by far not the hardest thing here. So what the fuck is the solution? You see, there's no universal answer to this question. There's no golden standard on how to love. Debating the optimal solution for this would be a never-ending process. It would go on forever. Which is why the best thing we can do for this video is to make suggestions based on the issues we previously discussed. The first one being that you should stop using social media influencers as a source for relationship advice and instead study the biology and psychology of pair bonding. The second one being that you should cut off bad habits that fuck up your neurochemistry and distort your perception of meaning. So things like doom scrolling, porn, drugs, and so on. And the third one being that you should accept that there are different types of love and that the type you get to experience totally depends on what life you are up to and what inputs your brain ends up receiving from it. And a very important thing you have to remember, just because one type of love may be over doesn't mean that a new one can't begin. I'm referring to this transition from stage 2 to 3, where everything becomes less intense and perhaps less exciting. There's one philosopher who can help us with this struggle, so by understanding that just because a relationship is transitioning from stage 2 to stage 3, it's not automatically over. Quite the opposite. He's also going to help us cultivate a mindset that is healthy and that allows us to practice stages 1 and 2 more virtuously. I'm talking about the Danish existentialist philosopher Kierkegaard here, and in his book Works of Love he writes, "Love is not a matter of feeling, but of conscience and duty." What he's basically saying here is that love is not something you feel, but something you choose to do. In the book, he argues that real love is not based on attraction, excitement, or preference, but on the decision to care for another person and to want what is good for them. So if we try to make sense of this in modern reality, well then love shouldn't be seen as a self-serving tool for dopamine, excitement, and validation, but rather as an act of service to improve another person's life. I mean, just think about all the old couples out there, the ones you see in a park or in the city on a bench holding hands, looking into the horizon or towards the fountain. What led them to such a long-term commitment? Was it prioritizing their own needs or prioritizing the needs of the other and hoping that the other person acts in good faith as well and therefore prioritizes their needs in return? You see, this video was created to show you an angle that you perhaps haven't seen before, to make you think, to make you question your beliefs, and to make you ask if what was discussed even affects you. I personally, after learning all the stuff that I just presented to you in this video, have been able to cultivate a much better understanding of why people love the way how they do and why so many people from my generation, so Gen Z, fail to do it properly. And I mean, the goal of these videos is to create a space that allows us to expand knowledge and share perspectives. So you can comment and let me know how you make sense of all of this. Perhaps you have a more political, cultural, or even more philosophical approach to this. Let me know in the comments. I'm glad to hear what you have to say. I want to end this video with one final thought or theory, namely that there is a silent cohort that wants to love properly, but doesn't have the courage to do so. I mean, we have so many individuals who are single. For men, it's 63% under the age of 30. For women, in case you want to know what it is, it's 34%. I think a lot of us want to have nice, healthy, sustainable, and exciting relationships, but so many of us fail because we just have lost hope. Will things get better in the future? Well, I think the more awareness we spread on these topics, the more possible we make it for all of us to understand what love is, not only from a philosophical, but also from a biological standpoint, the more sophisticated our understanding will become, and therefore the more likely we are to actually practice it properly, regardless of what kind of past we had. You see, that's a problem I think a lot of us deal with a past that a lot of us are not proud of. And being able to put that aside and accepting that with a new understanding, a new mind, we can also have a new life and a new relationship and a new idea of what love is and how we practice it. I think that will make a lot of us bullish on the topic of love. So, I mean, in the end, we all just want to flourish as human beings, and enlightenment is the first step how to get there, which is why the only thing I can say is see you in the next one.